Hey there, this podcast is brought to you, the listener. And if you want to help out the podcast, help keep us running, you can head over to our website, aapodcast.com/join. There you can make a donation or you can sign up to get our hentai episodes or hobby addicts or after parties, all of these exclusive little nuggets just for your entertainment, just to say thank you for supporting the podcast. And if you prefer to go the Patreon route, you can go to Patreon, support us over there, and all the same little goodies are available for you over there. Also, guys, this is a very community-driven podcast. Everything we do, it's for you. So if you want to help us out and keep us running, you can head over to our website or Patreon, throw us a couple bones. We'll appreciate it. And now it's time to start the show.
You're listening to the Anime Addicts Anonymous podcast. Take your anime addiction to the next level at aapodcast.com/join. And now, here are your anime addicts.
Welcome to episode 551 of the Anime Addicts Anonymous podcast. Wherever you're listening from, for those of you sitting at the bottom of a pool, you're basket weaving, I know it, underwater with your earbuds in, wild shit, grocery store, put that cereal in your cart. Guys, we're happy to have you listening from wherever you are. And to those of you watching live on Twitch, welcome to the podcast, where we are dedicated to making your anime addiction worse, as we have been now for over a decade. Thank you so much. I'm your host, Mitsugi. Happy to be here with my pink monster. Loving it so much. And I'm also joined by the fantastic Mason wearing a spice. What is that shirt you've got on?
It's a little Pikachu.
Oh, it's Pikachu in a little backwards cap. Mason, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's been toasty over here in the Midwest, so I had to break out the tank top for this episode.
Oh. And Mandy is joining us in it's like a Neapolitan kind of colored shirt jacket thing. How are you, Mandy?
It's actually my Seiren jacket from Kuroko no Basuke.
It looks like strawberry, vanilla, and chocolate ice cream. How are you?
Does it?
I think it's just the camera. It's
here
not
it
as
is.
red as it normally would be.
Oh, maybe. Yeah. But I'm doing great. I'm here. I'm ready to play basketball. And also talk about anime, I guess. I don't know.
We'll get to that eventually. Guys, thank you. If you want to watch us on Twitch live Sunday at 5 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/AAA podcast. We're also on Facebook. You can head over to our Facebook page. You can join our Discord from our website. That's the easiest place to get to. The website has been under construction the last week or so. We are working on fixing some things. We will get those things wrapped up. But you guys really should head over to the Discord. And at the end of the podcast today, we're going to give you a rundown on all the awesome community events that we have going on in the Discord, because really this podcast has and always will be about the community, about the listeners, and we want to get everybody involved as much as possible every episode, whether it's here or on the Discord. So stay tuned to the end of the show to get the details on that. Today on the podcast, I will continue to be a deceased horse dragged through the mud as we discuss the anime that we have been watching. So we have the two stallions here. We have Mason, and we have the fine mare, Mandy. They're gonna be pulling the cart. I'm gonna be like, honestly, I'm like meat at this point. That's like in the cart, and they're gonna eat me on the way to the West Coast in the wagon. But we're also gonna be watching or reviewing Wave Listen to Me, which was an anime from a couple seasons ago, so we're going to get to that. But first, we do have the results from our listener choice poll, and I'm going to play our little countdown drops here. Mason, if you would like to run us through it.
Number 5.
Number 5 on the list that you guys picked for us to review is Tenchi Muyo, which is a retro review with 15.8% of the votes.
Yeah, 15.8% of. So just so you know, multiple people could vote people could vote for 3 things on the list. So 15.8% means that 15.8% of you voted for that. So, because like if you add up all the percents, it's like thousands of percent, but okay. Tenchi Muyo.
Number 4
is Muno no Nana or Talentless Nana at 16.4%.
I know nothing about this.
I thought this was going to make it. I thought this was going to make it.
It was really close between that and this third place anime.
Number 3
So every show from here on out we will be reviewing, and number 3 is Yasuhime or Princess Half Demon, the sequel to Inuyasha.
Yeah, it squeaked in there right at the last minute. It was kind of behind most of the time, but then kind of had some support there at the end.
Number 2
is Gunsmith Cats, a retro review that I was surprised made it, but with 20.5% of the vote, easily got second place. So hyped for that.
Number 1
With a commanding 25.1% of the vote, it is Tonikawa, or Fly Me to the Moon, or Over the Moon for You, the relationship one between high schoolers and some random quote-unquote maybe alien people out of nowhere, but it'll be a little sweet little show. So we'll be reviewing Yasuhime, Gunsmith Cats, and Tonikawa.
I'm really excited for Gunsmith Cats. You know, it's short and sweet, 3 episodes long, just a ton of fun. It has a theme song that I think kind of rivals Tank from Bebop, and I say that because they're kind of the same musical style, but we'll have to get to that later on. But any shockers here? Anybody surprised? I'm
Not
surprised.
Really.
I'm surprised Higurashi didn't even make the top 5. So that was.
I guess I'm kind of surprised that Gunsmith Cats moved up so fast all the way up to the top. I honestly thought Tenchi Muyo would have gotten it.
Well. All right. Well, if there's nothing else, guys, let's talk about our big news items for the week.
Oh, 大ニュースです。It's time for big news of the week.
Naoki Urasawa, my man, because I love Monster so much, is apparently working on a new anime. So that is pretty exciting because if you don't know who Naoki Urasawa is, he is a very renowned manga creator who has a lot of very well-loved manga. Pluto, 20th Century Boys, and Monster are probably his top 3 works. All super, super highly regarded. They're just like all slam dunks. You know, we've talked about Monster ad nauseum on this podcast, and it was a pretty damn good anime adaptation. So I don't know what it could be. Any speculation, guys?
So last week we actually had the question, the mailbag, about what manga works did we want to see adapted, and I said I wanted Pluto, and Mandy informed me there is a Pluto adaptation coming. It is unclear if this is the Pluto adaptation that he is talking about or a separate work that he's making original for anime, and I'm hoping it's the latter and we get 2 of his things adapted.
Well, this article already mentions an anime based on Pluto's in the works, so I don't think it's that.
I don't think so either, but I don't want to put all my eggs in the basket and be like, oh, I was expecting 2 things. So I have no idea what it could be.
Well, would you prefer that it be based something that he's like a manga that he's already worked on, or something that's like originally written by him just for anime? You know what I mean? If you know what I mean.
My interpretation is that this is a anime original work that he's putting together and not one of his manga being adapted. But I guess I just trust his vision in whatever media he's involved with so much that I'm fine either way.
I like that we just keep saying adapted.
Adapted.
Well,
Adapted.
fuck it. Why not?
I just started rolling with it.
Yeah, I don't know if this is going to be an original or not. I'm trying to think. There was another manga of his that was recently released in English for the first time, and I can't remember what it was. I'm trying so hard to find it. But all I know is that every time we have listener choice, I always put Master Keaton on there, and nobody ever votes for it. And I'm salty, and I blame everybody.
Yeah, so he did Billy Bat. Billy Bat is another manga that he did. NASA. Let's see. There's a whole bunch of small short run mangas, but I'm not really sure which one you're referring to, Mandy. But
it's The Sign of Dreams. That one came out in English recently.
got it.
And that girl looks very similar to the one that's on the article, so I would not be surprised if that's the one that's coming out.
Yeah.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but it's a possibility.
All right. Well, that's my big news. I love Naoki Urasawa, so I'm excited to see that he is doing something else here that we'll be able to enjoy. Mandy?
Also going into new properties, the mangaka who wrote Innocent, which is not going to be well known over here because it has not been released legally in the West, but it's a very well known manga that is such gorgeous art. Innocent's all about the French Revolution and the was it Marie Antoinette, I believe, but that mangaka is coming out with a new series that is based on Dracula. So
Ooh.
I don't know. I think their art style is so perfect for that. So I'm excited. And I love their character designs. It's very super goth looking. And I'm very excited for this. But
I just like Dracula. Anything that's got Dracula in it, I think it's cool.
And I'm hoping that because it's getting more news, maybe someone will finally bring the manga over here for Innocent. I would very much love to collect those. But and also my other thing is that they released the character designs for the Tokyo Babylon anime, and I am not a fan.
Oh, I'll have to look at this.
So
yep, I can see that.
People who don't know anything about Tokyo Babylon, it's an old Clamp manga, and they don't look like the characters from the Clamp manga whatsoever. Look, if you want a Clamp manga or Clamp anime or an adaptation of a Clamp manga, you're gonna need to have 95% legs. I'm sorry, but their legs are too short.
Oh, you want them to have more legs.
But it is by Go Hands, and looking at the PV that they release, it has a very Handshaker's feel to it, and I'm not a fan of that style, but we'll see.
Yikes. Yeah, it doesn't look like Clamp, but it doesn't look good either.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. We'll see.
All right.
I don't want to judge it too soon, but...
Mason, how about you?
Consider yourself judged. Mine is an announcement of the anime film called Our Sound. It's coming to North America on December 11th. It's a story of a bunch of delinquents who decide to start a rock band despite never have playing instruments before in their life, while they're trying to avoid rival gangs and impress the one friend that they have. It's animated almost entirely by the director Kenji Iwaisawa, and it's an adaptation of the Angaku manga, and this is going to be in theaters in San Francisco, Chicago, Austin, Dallas, Boston, and a lot of other cities. A little upsetting because with the second kind of uptick in COVID cases, I think a lot of theaters will be closed or it will be hard to get to. But nonetheless, if you have the option to get out and see this movie, I think it'll be super cool. I've had it on my list for a long time, and I'm excited to check it out. So, Our Sound, give it a shot.
Yeah, they've closed down all the theaters in Denver, so
yeah, hopefully they move the state back, or ideally kind of do what Made in Abyss did and move to an online release. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, well, I mean they're not going to have much choice but to push it back from the theater release because there won't be any theaters to put it out in. So, okay. Well, anything else, guys, before we move into this main topic?
Nah, I think we're trying to get right to it because we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, of what we've been watching. You know, I meant to pick up a like an old '90s OVA to watch, but it took me so long to get through Wave. Listen to me this week that it never happened. But I have seen some of the stuff you guys are going to talk about here, so I will be chiming in periodically. So, why don't we start with Mandy? Why don't you kick it off?
I think I'd rather go after Mason because the one that I want to talk about, I'm afraid that it might take too long. So I'll go last.
Okay, Mason.
I will speed through a bunch of a few of these and hopefully leave enough time for Mandy, because that's definitely an important discussion to have. I will say, obviously, if you get our show notes, you can see the whole list of everything we have. And if you go on AnyList and follow me at MAKLAX, you can see the whole list of everything I've been watching and follow there. But the ones I want to talk about, because this is, the Thanksgiving week episode, and some people might have some free time, I want to give people just a ton of rapid fire takes. So first up is Apari Ranman, which is on Funimation. I failed the show during the impression seasons a while ago, and a lot of people were asking for my thoughts about it, so I figured I'd give it another go. The OP still slaps, and it's very much a show that's not about the destination, it's about the journey and about the constant fake villains along the way. It's still a little too silly for me, and it's a little too slow for me, and it's an easy watch, but I just did not find it rewarding. The racing itself is kind of dull. The choreography and the fighting, despite it being a racing show, is actually the strongest part of it, along with the character designs, which look very solid. Unfortunately, the characters themselves aren't even a third as interesting as how they look. When the best part of your show is eye catches, it's not a great sign.
Yeah.
I'm not upset that I failed it, but I hope that you enjoyed it if you stuck with it. I went to Twitter then and got a ton of requests for what people wanted to hear me talk about. So here we go. From Cream Puff, they asked that I watch Wolf's Rain, which is on Funimation, which for some reason I have still not seen over all these years. And since we were finally deprived of the wolf entities in the delay of To Your Eternity, I figured I had to fill up my wolf quota in some way. So Wolf's Rain, I would say it's certainly not a bad show, and I like how different it feels in a lot of other shows. Like, it just feels unique. But I was kind of lukewarm throughout the whole thing. I don't know if you guys have seen it, what your thoughts were, but it was just fine.
It's been a very long time.
I didn't love it as much as I was hoping to.
Well, I'll tell you right now, that ending theme song is like just heart melting. I mean, it's just another Maya Sakamoto Yoko Kanno collaboration on that ending theme, Gravity, and it's just like a heartbreaking song. That's like one of my favorite ending themes of all time. But like, come on, Maya Sakamoto and Yoko Kanno are like gods. They're like anime music
that
gods.
Certainly helps.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up is Lovely Complex, recommended by Midlife Otaku. You can find this on Crunchyroll. This is a classic shoujo rom-com series that has unbelievably good visual presentation. Like, along with the voice acting, the show is full of life and charm and character. I love all the different outfits and hairstyle changes throughout it. The biggest downfall to it is this almost unbelievably dense character that make like the whole confession part of these rom-coms kind of frustrating. You get the confession scene, but the other person is sleeping, or these rivals come in to like try to mess up the couple once they finally do form something. And I don't know, there's a lot of the tropes at play, but overall I thought it was really compelling and solid, and it had a decent enough ending, which I think a lot of these series tend to lack. If you have the patience for the will they, won't they, even though they clearly will, I would say if you like Toradora or Kimi no Todoke, check this out. It looked really cool. So just for that, I'd recommend it. Really quick, Isekai Izakaya from Thy Eggman. It's on Crunchyroll. It's a food show, and it looked really good. And I felt like, we are characters of the show. Mitz is Taisho, the chef who's making all the stuff behind the scenes and is the foundation. And Mandy is Shinobu-chan, like the charm and of the establishment. And no one knows how old she is. It's just a mystery. No one can guess it. And I guess I'm just all the patrons that are there to eat. So
22.
Yeah, 12 in the show.
I'm 12? Shit.
You never know.
What are you doing in an izakaya? You're 12.
I've seen a lot of shit at 12.
But the best part of the show by far is like the live action segments at the end, where some guy just like cooks the dishes from the show and gives you really helpful like tips. And I really love that. So if you're definitely just in it for the food, Isekai Izakaya is pretty cool. Just give me 2 more minutes. I'll be really quick. I went on a spree of like really short, obscure art house pieces. If you go to Geidai Animation, Geidai Animation on YouTube, it's the Tokyo University of the Arts, their graduate school for film and new media, and they just post all the students' projects on their YouTube channel. It's just a bunch of like 5 to 10 minute videos that are so phenomenal to watch and have all these weird art styles that are interesting and inventive and just cool. So if you want to go on a weird art house kick, check that out. Particularly a piece called Pooperia, which is not in that same vein, but it is a 3-minute short that is wordless, kind of disconnected and breathtaking, and it has this beautiful, like, entrancing soundscape of like vibraphones and marimbas, and it's just a cool experience. So check out Pooperia. And finally, Gargantua on the Verdurous Planet. Frigimon Fanatic recommended it to me because I went on his Recovery of an Anime Junkie podcast on episode 38, and he said, hey, you need to watch this show. And it was pretty cool. It's a sci-fi show that's mech heavy, but not reliant on it. And it looks really cool. And there's a little bit of tasteless fan service in it that didn't vibe with me, but I can't say I didn't enjoy it overall. So
that anime is pretty bizarre. I mean,
it certainly is. It's a Butcher thing, and it had some cool ideas. And this whole like advanced society that rediscovers a primitive Earth form that kind of live on these large barges as they sail around the world and kind of learn to live / fight against these weird alien squid creatures. But it just had a bunch of good ideas and didn't do a lot with all of them.
There's some like savage ass plot twist towards the end. I mean, that's kind of the whole point of the show, I think, is like you're like you're kind of wondering what the hell's going on, and then the plot twists come and you're like, ooh, okay. So stick with it.
I rewatched Land of the Lustrous, and it's still amazing, so check it out if you haven't. And with that, I think we can move to Mandy.
Hi, guys. Yeah, so I did have a lot of things on my list, but there's one that I really wanted to talk about because it actually ended up being really important to me. And the other ones, I mean, I'll get to them. If I don't get to them today, I'll get to them next time, because the other ones, I mean, they're fine, but they're not like super important to unpack. But yeah, so I recently watched Yurikuma Arashi, which was the last Ikuhara one that I had to watch of his shows. And I know the podcast reviewed this a long time ago, but I was not here for that. And man, this one was quite a wild ride for me. So,
really quick, I want to mention, if you don't know, Ikuhara is the director who did Penguin Drum, Revolutionary Girl Utena, and Sarazanmai, to name a few. But
thanks.
Continue. Sorry, I didn't know if you were getting to it.
And Starlight Review.
So yeah, so if you look at this completely at face value on the surface, if you just go into it, not like try to pull apart all of the symbolism and metaphors behind it, it is a story about where in this world where there were one day bears stood up and decided they wanted to start eating people. And people put up a wall called the Wall of Severance, and separating the world between humans and bears. But one day, two bears disguise themselves as humans, come over the wall, and one of them has a history with a girl in high school named Kureha. And there's something known as the invisible storm that makes people disappear. And while the girls at Kureha's high school, they also hunt down and try to exclude bears. That's the very, very surface of it. But behind all of Ikuhara's very, usual symbolism and metaphors, the story is actually about two girls who are in love, and they're trapped between homophobia, bigotry, dangerous lesbian stereotypes, and a patriarchy that dictates whether or not their love can be considered real or what they have to do to be considered acceptable. So Ikuhara, lately what I have noticed from Yurikuma Arashi, and he also did this for Sarazanmai, is that he's also releasing stories over different types of media. And we don't really get to see a lot of them over here in the West, because usually when we get manga over here, it's when they know that there has been an interest in it from the anime. So the mangas for these came out over here past the anime, but in Japan, they released alongside the anime. So Yurikuma Arashi, the manga came out alongside the release of the anime, and the manga is 3 volumes long, and he requested the help of Akiko Morishima to work with him on this. And Akiko is a well-known and openly queer woman who writes yuri manga for women. And a lot of her stuff, like Conditions of Paradise, It's very sensual. She focuses a lot on. I don't know if I want to show this on stream. It's a very sexy image, but she focuses a lot on sex. But the manga for Yurikuma Arashi is so vastly different from the anime. So if you feel like you watched the anime and did not understand it, I think because the manga is kind of tied to that. So in the manga, Ginko's mother, I grabbed the wrong book. Ginko's mother is, who is a girl in the anime, used to draw books for children revolving around bears becoming people. And after a traumatic experience in her life, Ginko's mother told Ginko all about this story. And Ginko started to suffer from delusions that she is a bear who wants to eat people. And the bear form that she sees herself as is modeled after stuffed animals, and she sees everybody in school as bears. And all of the characters that are in the anime are also in the manga, and they're aware of her delusions. And the also, like in the anime, the Bear Council, which if you've seen the anime, it's like these three male bears, the only guys in the entire anime. They're also just guys that go to their school, and the leader is known as the sexiest guy in school. But he's very attracted to Ginko, and constantly tries to get her to date him, and presses her on, like, because Ginko is in love with this other girl at school named Kureha, and constantly pressures her, like, is your love real? Can it be considered real? I mean, you guys are girls. So yeah, it's very interesting how that ties together. And Sadazanmai also did something very similar, where Ikuhara released a single manga called Mabu and Rio, where in this one they're a couple and they find an abandoned child together, and they decide to take her in and try to raise her together. And their relationship in this is very, very different from the anime of Sadazanmai, where they are happier, there's a lot of joy in their life, and they love each other. And then leading up to the release of the anime, Ikuhara released a Twitter page that is a quote-unquote page run by Mabu in Rio. And they when it started out, they were like in love, and they're posting things about their life together. And as time progressed, like towards the release of the anime, the toxic nature of just society's standards starts to creep into their dialogue, and their mood turns darker, and all of their like selfies and pictures around town that they post have start getting little pictures of the Otter Empire like sprinkled out through all of them, hidden in the background. And all that leads up to the anime, where Mabu and Rio are completely different, and the otters are, completely dictate their relationship, and it's now marketed, in a way marketed to people where there's very devoid of love and joy. So both of these series are kind of like Ikuhara's criticism of how LGBT relationships are portrayed in media. So Yurikuma, man, there's so whenever they do these like hunts where it's called the exclusion ceremony, where they try to go out and in this world find bears, quote unquote bears, because in Japan bear is also a slang for lesbians, but also just gay relationships in general. It's man, it filled me with so much anxiety. I was like, man, the way that it's portrayed, I was like, damn, this really hit me really hard. But I feel like the anime had such a beautiful, hopeful ending, and also in the manga as well. So it's a lot to take in, as Ikuhara tends to be, but man, there's so much in there to unpack, and so much symbolism. I'm like, the way that I tear apart like Mononoke and look at every single little thing about it, I'm like, I could do it through this series. So I absolutely loved it, and it was something that related to me particularly, and I was like, damn, it hit me hard. But yeah, it's a lot to take in if you are not good with. If you need something that's a little bit more straightforward, that's not this. And I don't think it doesn't do a great job with the characters. The character-wise, there's not they're not fantastic characters, but I think it was more of just Ikuhara's idea that he wanted, or like just views that he wanted to express in particular different kind of just topics in general. And yeah, I don't know. It was fascinating. I can definitely see where it's not for everybody, especially if you don't jive well with Ikuhara. But I think now, after I've seen everything, I think I am very confident that Ikuhara is my favorite director, because I just really greatly appreciate that he talks about all these really important topics. But yeah, it's on Funimation. It's by Silverlink. It came out in 2015. If you're interested.
You you also had Yuri Kuma on your list here, Mason.
I watched it because Mandy was posting about her thoughts on it during it, and I was like, oh, it's probably worth my time to watch it as well and get a better idea of what this discussion will be about. And I would say that the characters maybe not being as nuanced is probably due to the fact that the message and themes are more important than the characters individually. So maybe making them more complex would have obfuscated what Ikuhara was going for. But I definitely always appreciate Ikuhara for his boldness and uniqueness. And personally, I thought that this show was maybe just a little too sweet for me. Some of the shabada-doos or kuma shocks or licking a flower budding from someone's nether regions as it's slathered with honey was just not quite to my taste. But nonetheless, I'm not upset that I watched it. I probably connected with it the least out of all his works. I definitely prefer Penguin Drum and Sarazanmai to this, but as you guys know, I like shows that are unlike other things, and this one certainly fits the bill. So, like Mandy said, it's definitely not a across-the-board recommendation for lots of people, but nonetheless, it is an experience that I valued, and for 12 episodes, it could really connect with some people. So, I don't think I want to dig into it more than that, but it was an Ikuhara show, and if you like him, no reason not to give this one a shot.
What is the for Ikuhara, who is so like things are not at face value, you know, a lot of times in Ikuhara, like you got to kind of look into it, think about it. What is the entry anime of his, would you say? I mean, because some of these shows are complicated and, you know, have metaphors and, you know, it's...
I think the easiest one is Penguin Drum to get out of all of them. I mean, Utena, came out before Penguin Drum, but I think it's probably easier to just watch Penguin Drum without having to dive deep into it than, more so than Utena, I think.
Yeah, you know,
I would also say that, and Penguin Drum is my favorite, but now that Mandy mentioned, Yurikuma and Sarazanmai having like alongside it mixed media material, I'd want to know if Penguin Drum had that similar approach and how well that faded in, because I could definitely see where, if you're not doing the extra reading, there might be something lost.
I don't think it did. I think it had a light novel, but I don't know.
But I think it was not connected in the same way that you mentioned, where there's a secondary source.
But the manga is the funniest part when you mentioned Shabadabdu. That guy at school, he starts pissing her off, and she starts like seeing him as a bear saying Shabadabdu. She starts like giggling to herself, and he's just like, was I used for something? It was cracking me up.
Manny just talked about this whole like side school plot thing with Life Sexy, the name of like the leader of the male bear like jury thing, but that's not in the anime at all. Like,
no.
Men are just there to be like, I approve this love is valid because it conforms with societal views, and they're not even characters in the world, but clearly they are. So I don't know. I guess I'd recommend Penguin Drum first, and you'll pretty instantly know if his thing is to your liking.
Yeah. Okay. Ikuhara has a very weird sense of humor, so a lot that comes through in a lot of his stuff. There's always butt jokes in everything that he has. But yeah, it's if you are ready for something to deep dive into, that's definitely check out Ikuhara stuff, because man, I love it. But do we have enough time for any of my other?
We have lots of time.
Oh, okay. So, Deno Koyo, I watched that, and it's been on my list for a really long time.
Yeah.
And Dude, it was super cool. I think the
Yay.
like augmented reality part of it was so fascinating. But although there are times where I'm like, hang on a second. So if it's AR and these kids are out in like middle of the street running around screaming,
Yeah.
does nobody care about that in this neighborhood? Question. So there are some times where I feel like the anime forgot that it's AR and not like a fantasy.
It's just kids. Just kids.
Yeah, just kids being kids, you know, with their really expensive,
Screaming for no reason.
with their multi-$1,000 goggles.
I know that like the technology behind it was so fascinating. I think my favorite episode out of all of them is when they had the were they called bugs that were like beards and like they're like infecting people and everybody had these beards, but then when they went in and like did like a microscopic look at all the beards, they were like they had like each strand was like a different bug, and they all had a civilization going on, and one of them started wars with one person's face onto another person's face. It is really funny. It was my favorite episode.
Do they like launch rockets and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
you saw
fucking
this little
hilarious.
rocket go around her head and to the other side.
You can
Denocoil.
watch, Denocoil and High Dive, by the way, for the
Yes.
chat.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
Denocoil is such a unique anime. It looks unique. Like the art is just very interesting and special to look at. Like the way the characters are done, and the concept is so imaginative and almost limitless. Like there's so many things they can do with it, and it's just so much fun going on the adventures with all the little kids in it.
And I think it was also 26 episodes, I believe.
I think
It was
so.
2 cores. I don't know if
24.
it was 24, 26.
I'll check
I
it.
believe you.
Yeah, it was definitely at least 24 episodes.
yeah.
Denocoil, yeah, it's 26.
Okay, yeah, it's on High Dive. I definitely recommend checking it out. It was and I thought the dub was actually pretty good too. I watched it all dubbed, and yeah, it was really cool. Like if you can forgive the parts where it's like almost like life and death situations in an AR world, and in the back of your head you're thinking, well, just take your fucking goggles off.
Yeah.
Or glasses. But forgetting that they're just kids playing a game who also just get too wrapped up in a game, which I could definitely see happening if a technology like this came out. I mean, I could definitely see people getting a little bit too wrapped up in the game. I think it was really fascinating towards the end. I don't want to give out spoilers, but there is a part where their parents are finally like, you're getting too involved in this and you're having difficulties trying to figure out what's real and what isn't real. And I thought that was super cool.
Yeah.
When their parents finally started getting involved. For a while there, I was like, where the fuck are their parents? What are they doing right
That's
now?
anime. It's like, where are the parents?
I know. You're
Never.
like,
There's never any
your
parents.
kids are running around the middle of the street screaming at 2 a.m. Come on.
The reason Google Glass failed is because they watched the show and they're like,
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
bad
don't think
idea.
we're ready for it.
Yeah, it's like if you just watched anime, you would think Japan was this country of just nothing but children running around, but in reality, it's kind of the opposite. But yeah, Denocoil was great. I love Madhouse. They've made so many animes for me that just hit right on the they just hit right in the right spot. I don't know. I think it's because they have like more of a action science fiction tone to them sometimes, and I kind of like, wow, this is rated G. They say it's rated G. Denocoil, no way. Oh well, maybe.
It was in the works for like so long too. Like
I
it
don't
just
know.
had a life to it. It's so cool.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so I also watched Mermaid's Forest, and I don't think this is
Oh.
airing anywhere legally, I don't believe, but it's a 13 episode anime. The manga is originally by Rumiko Takahashi, who is the author of Inuyasha, for people who might be newer and don't recognize her name. But the manga also just recently came out in English as a collection. So if this sounds interesting to you and you want to check that out, it just recently came out. But I believe this was adapted by TMS Entertainment. And I've never really heard anybody talk about it, except it was recommended to me by our friend Chibi Rob. And it's one of those works that I didn't know anything about from Rumiko Takahashi, because I feel like her works are usually revolve around Inuyasha, Ranma, and Urusei
Yatsura.
Yatsura,
Yeah.
thank you. But yeah, so this one I feel like got kind of buried, but it's more of a horror, I would say. And it's about a guy who consumed the flesh of a mermaid. And if you don't know the
Oh.
um like the history of like mermaids, or like the belief of mermaids, is that if you eat their flesh you become immortal. So he ate the flesh of a mermaid and is now immortal, and he's been traveling through time for the past 500 years. And the mermaids forest anime is kind of sort of episodic, although some of the episodes go into the next one, or continue on to the next one. Some of them are like 2 episodes long, but for the most part it's kind of episodic, and each episode is about him just traveling through time and encountering other really messed up situations involving mermaid's flesh and other people who have eaten it and became immortal. And some of them have lost their minds, because not everybody who eats mermaid's flesh becomes immortal. Some of them become monsters. And so it's sort of like a horror. It's definitely one of her darker series that I have seen. And I haven't seen every or read every Rumi or Takahashi work out there, but from everything that I have known so far, this one is pretty dark. And but I thought it was pretty cool though. I wouldn't say it's definitely not my favorite of hers, but it has a very different tone from everything else that she has done, where I feel like everything else that I've read of hers is more of like, light, fluffy comedy. And I mean, Inuyasha's not, has those comedic moments, and there are some, shonen action in there. But this one was, had a much darker tone than anything else that I've read of hers. So if you're looking for like a Takahashi work that is different from everything else that you know of hers, check this one out. It's definitely more mature than everything else that I've seen from her.
How many episodes is it? Because I feel like the
13.
biggest... Oh, okay. Because I feel like the biggest hurdle for her stuff is always like, it's like 100
Yes.
episodes for like Maisen Ikoku or Ursa Yatsura.
Oh my god, it's so
or
long.
Ranma 1/2. Like,
Yeah.
everything is just like, I'm interested, but like, I don't know if I want to spend the time. But if this is only one core, I might be recommend. I'll check it out and see what I think, because that sounds cool. And if it's only 13 episodes, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of her stuff ends up being very long-winded, but this one is wrapped up pretty nicely. So, I mean, not that it has like, it's more episodic, so it's not like it has like a really satisfying ending or anything, or like it's not like a very well like a expertly crafted story or anything.
Sure.
But it does come to a conclusion, so that's nice. So it's not like something that goes on for 200 episodes. You're like, I don't think I'm ever going to see the end of this.
Exactly.
What else do we have time for? I watched all of Genshiken, and Sorry.
Have you not seen Genshiken before? I feel like
No, I read the manga,
wow. Okay.
but I never seen
okay.
the anime.
Okay, yeah.
I read the manga a while ago, and that's why I put off the anime for so long. Sorry, something's beeping back there. But yeah, I did read the manga for this, and we did it for Manga Club as well. We did the first, like, I think 2 or maybe 3 volumes. I can't remember. But yeah, so I just recently watched this, and very similar to my feelings of the manga. I really like the second season far more than I like the first season. And I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but the character Saki is too much for me in the first season. It's just, I don't know. I understand, and we had this like debate in our manga club when we did this, where a lot of people said that Saki is kind of what makes it work, and I agree that I understand where they're coming from, but she still gives me a bit too much of that, like what was that show with the nerds?
Well, what?
Oh, where do I begin?
The show.
Nerd alert!
The show
My
of
brain just fried, and I can't remember what it's called.
The show of the nerds. Otaku no Video.
Movie, or like a live action show.
Revenge of the Nerds.
Big Bang Theory.
Big Bang Theory. Yes, it gives me too much of that Big Bang Theory where it's like, oh, the woman who tries to break up the club, and it's not a character that I like. And I think some of the times, I like the parts where she goes in there and is kind of like slowly, learning stuff, or tries to become interested a little bit, but there's so many moments where she breaks things and it almost seems malicious, and it's just too much for me. And yeah, that's why I couldn't get into the first season, but she's so much better in the second season. The second season feels a lot less like women aren't allowed in this nerd club because more women come into it, and I really enjoyed the second season far more than the first. But it's still a good series if you're looking for like a club with like anime fans in it who discuss anime, and they do all kinds of different activities together, like creating manga together and cosplaying, and but they're not in high school, they're college age kids, and they all have their own different kind of relationships going on with each other. And yeah, overall I like the series. I just prefer second season far more than the first.
I really did not like the first season.
Yeah.
And I dropped it because all the people that say to watch the second season like the first season. So I'm like, well,
I don't understand that.
I didn't like the first one, so I'll probably stop it. But maybe with your recommendation, I'll.
Was it Saki that turned you off for the first season?
It's been so long since I've seen it. There was something in the character dynamics. Like, I like the idea of it. Like, I like the concept, and a lot of what they share is cool. But the way that the characters talk to one another never really jived with me.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. I understand where people are coming from. I know she's like a fan favorite, but I thought she was so much better in the second season because she's kind of got over the whole idea of like, I have to try and force my boyfriend to stop being into this anime stuff. That died down so much more in the second season, and I was able to stomach it a lot better. So I don't know.
Now you gotta watch
a decent series though.
Gotta watch the whole like spin-off, like Kujibiki Unbalanced, whatever it is, like the show within the show.
Oh, did they do that?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
They made
Showception.
and then I think they made like a whole series based on the show that the characters in Genshiken like.
Really? That's so cool.
I think so. It's kind of cool.
It's kind of like
it's like Geki Ganger.
The like second, like the fake anime that's in Shirobako. I wish they would have done that. Like like if they had made separate anime for all the anime they created in that, that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Or like Nadesco has the Geki Ganger anime in it that they all watch. Okay, well I think we're pretty much out of time, unless you guys have any more that you feel like you need to get out there before we go to our news break. So.
Nah, if it was better, I'd talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Alrighty, so then I guess we're going on to our news break and our news trivia question, which is the mangaka for Wave Listen to Me is Hiroaki Samura. And we did a review earlier this year for another anime adaptation of one of his most famous works. Do you remember which one that is? Ponder it, and we'll answer it after the break.
We'll see you soon. Hey Anime Addicts, this is Mitsugi, and I am bringing you, well, of course, it's your anime news break. Getting us started off here, we have a few new anime announcements. Starting off, for those of you that like Boys Love manga, Sasaki to Miyano is getting an anime adaptation. This was announced in the 39th chapter of the manga on Friday. Miyano spends his days peacefully reading Boys Love comics and worrying about how girly his face is until a chance encounter leads to a scuffle with his senior, Sasaki. Intrigued by his feisty junior Miyano, the delinquent Sasaki uses every opportunity he can to get closer. That coming from Yen Press. So if you're a fan of Boys Love, you can see the adaptation of Sasaki and Miyano coming out sometime in anime form in the future. Next up, another anime, a fantasy light novel, Shin no Nakama Janai to Yusha no Party o Oidasareta no... Wait, way too long of a title. Banished from the hero's party, I decided to live a quiet life in the countryside. These fantasy shows with their long titles. A hero and mighty adventurer dreams of opening a pharmacy. Red, once a member of the hero's party, a powerful group destined to save the world, was ousted and kicked out by one of his comrades. Hoping to live an easy life on the frontier, Red's new goal is to open an apothecary or a pharmacy. However, keeping the secret of his former life may not be as simple as he thinks, especially when the beautiful Rit, an adventurer from his past, shows up and asks to move in with him. That also from Yen Press. If you are a fan of fantasy stories with a twist, look out for Banished from the Hero's Party. I decided to live a quiet life in the countryside, coming in anime form sometime soon. And lastly, another anime adaptation announcement. Kanojo mo Kanojo is getting a TV anime adaptation in 2021. The synopsis: after harboring an unrequited love for years, Naoya Mukai finally gets to date his childhood friend Saki Saki. However, just as he tries to commit himself to her, he receives a confession from another girl, Nagisa Minase, and not wanting to either betray or hurt the feelings of either girl, decides that he will just two-time them instead. Great guy. So that is the synopsis coming from Mal Rewrite. So if you're a fan of what I can only imagine will be a slice of life love triangle drama, look out for Kanojo no Kanojo coming out sometime in 2021. Next up, well, it's that time of year again for video games. The Video Game of the Year nominees have been announced, so you can go online and vote for them now, and there are 6 of them, many of which we've talked about here on the podcast, including Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII's Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and The Last of Us Part 2, all nominated for Game of the Year, and we have talked about at least 4 of those on Hobby Addicts if you want to go back and listen to us discuss those titles, and we'll have to see what wins. I know Mandy will be pulling for Hades, as I am pulling for Final Fantasy VII Remake. And lastly, some typical kind of arrest news in Japan. 34-year-old man was arrested in Ibaraki Prefecture, where I used to live, for selling unauthorized modified versions of Madoka Magica characters, saying he did it to pay living costs, raising $55,000 over the course of about 2 years by chopping off the heads of Madoka Magica figures and attaching them to nude female models and selling them on auction sites. So, interesting way to make a living, but I guess you gotta pay the bills, but now you'll be spending your money on legal fees, I'm sure. This is Mitsugi, and this was your anime news break, and now, as always, time to get back to the podcast. Anime Addicts, the AAA podcast, is always trying to bring you new and exciting ways to enjoy our content, and now we have an exclusive member-only RSS feed on the site that is going to let you access our hentai episodes, our Hobby Addicts, and our After Parties episodes, all from your favorite mobile apps. That's an additional 8 episodes of content per month just for you, and you can listen to it through Apple Podcasts app, you can listen to it through Podcast Addicts, Pocket Cast, Overcast FM, Downcast FM, etc., onward and onward. So many mobile apps for you to choose from. If you were holding back on supporting the podcast because you didn't like listening to our extra content through our website, now you can get it and listen to it the same way you enjoy all your other podcasts. So pitch in, help out the podcast, do a good thing, and enjoy all the extra content we have for you. Just go to aaapodcast.com/join, support the podcast, Merry Christmas, and you will get all this extra content and an exclusive member RSS feed for you to enjoy. That again, that's aaapodcast.com/join, and support the podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. When we left you for our news break, we had a trivia question for you. The mangaka for Wave Listen to Me is Hiroaki Samura. Doing the Wave. We did a review earlier this year for another anime adaptation of one of his most famous works. Do you remember which one? And the answer, Blade of the Immortal. So, a completely different type of story. So, we'll have to see.
There's no way this was 2020. No way that was the same year.
Yeah.
Please tell me this
crazy.
isn't. Oh no.
Because that anime ended in March. Can you believe that? It feels like it was over a year ago. Mason's face.
I don't know what to say.
Yeah, because it was too core.
Yeah.
It started and went and just kept on going. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yikes.
I know.
It's been a
It is so
crazy.
I was thinking about this when we went on break. I was like, man, all of the stuff that I watched, I really need to take more notes because it's so weird. Like when you're watching something and you have like all of these thoughts in your head. And then when you get to your, like, finally get to this what have we been watching episode, they all escape. And you're like, I don't remember anything I was going to say.
Yep.
I apologize. I'm trying my best here.
All right. Well, we haven't done one of these in a while, but we do have a Good, the Bad, and the Moe for you today. For those of you that are new to the podcast, this is a segment where we basically talk about one good, one bad, and one unusual news story. And apparently, Twitch is like flagging all music for the most part. So I don't have a music drop for you for Twitch for Good, the Bad, and the Moe. So we will go on without it for this week. But
we can do it.
You want to do it anyway?
We could do it. We could do. Mason, what's your best like cowboy voice?
The good, the bad, and the YOLO.
Yeah, do that.
Well, doesn't it start with like the
Go on.
It's time for the good, the bad, and the Moe.
I don't know. It's Western shit. So, anyway, for the good this week, there is something positive coming out of this pandemic in Japan. Apparently, after a survey that was done not that long ago in Japan, it turns out that 20% of Japan's married couples say that their relationships have improved because of the pandemic. More people in Japan are home due to the pandemic, as opposed to working constantly and never seeing their significant others. So, in a survey of 1,080 respondents ages 20 to 60, 19.6% said that their relationships had improved. 62% citing that they were talking more to their partners, and 37% saying that they are having meals together, which helped. So
all it took was a pandemic.
All it took was normal human interaction to improve things. 6% said that they had worsened, and 74% said that it was not changed. So also, some respondents said that they have an increased appreciation for their partner in married life. So, something good coming out of the pandemic in Japan. For the bad, unfortunately, Kirby Morrow has passed away at age 47. Very young for really anybody to be passing away, but Kirby Morrow, one of the more noteworthy dub actors in anime, having done a lot of roles that a lot of people are familiar with. Goku in the Ocean Productions dub of Dragon Ball, so one of the Goku voice actors. Miroku from Inuyasha, so that's pretty sad. You know, a lot of people like Miroku and are very familiar with his voice from that very long-running series. Troa Barton from Gundam Wing, which is another very well-known show, having been on Cartoon Network. Van Fennell from Ascaflowne, one of my favorite anime. So Van being basically the main character. So that is pretty shocking. So Kirby Morrow, you'll be missed. Pretty young to lose some voice acting talent.
Yeah, it's really sad.
And then for the Moe, there's a game called Unkore in Japan, in which anime girls discuss with you about your real-life bowel movements, which I thought was pretty unusual. And this was almost my top story for the show today. The full title, Un Code, a colon bacillus of as healthy life, has come out on Android and iOS. In a game where you earn in-game currency by telling the game cast of cute anime characters about your real-life bowel movements you had that day. And you can categorize them by color, ranging from browns to like redishes, or even like white, like ghostly white, like people like what do you people like pigeons or some shit? Like you're gonna shit like white poop. Also the consistency of the poop, which includes a lot of classifications, including banana-like or muddy. So that's pretty, mud butt. No one likes mud butt. That's no good. The game's girls are anthropomorphized versions of intestinal bacteria, particularly the helpful bacteria in your intestines, which is, and what haven't been anthropomorphized into anime girls, honestly, like
have we had microphones?
I don't know.
Probably.
Am I looking around my apartment? Yes, I am.
I mean, I'm just picturing the Moyashiman, the bacteria from that show, but just
cute girls.
It's wild. It's wild stuff. But so there's a good reason why this game exists. So it's a game put out by one of the health societies in Japan. It helps to identify a series of health problems that can be diagnosed through your poop, I guess. So the game will take you the reports of your dookies and will, if the game believes that you're having a serious health condition, will notify you and tell you to go see a doctor. So they're actually like trying to keep tabs on people's health through their poop. So I guess there's like a lot of stuff you could have going on, like colon cancer and other things. So there is a reason.
Have they localized this over here? Because I will play this.
What do you buy with the in-game currency?
I don't know.
Like, get filters so you can take pictures of your poop and like put like.
Does it have a calendar with like an "I poop today" button?
I don't know. I'm
not gonna lie. Look, every doctor appointment. Most of our conversations is about poop, so I'm totally already prepared for this game.
So yeah, I mean, it's on iOS and Android. Check it out. It's called Unkode. So unko in Japanese means like poop. So the game is literally called poop, basically. So I don't know what else to tell you. Go check it out. I'll
be on the lookout for an English version.
Mandy goes to her doctor. He's like, "How have your poops been?" And she's like, "Well, let Bacteria-chan tell you all about it."
God, I can't wait.
All right, and that was the good, the bad, and the moe for this week. So,
thank you.
All right, that's the. You know what? You can always count on me to brighten your day with the most absurd news story. And now, mailbags.
It's time for an almighty anime mailbag. Anime.
Mailbag.
I'm so glad we don't have to do that drop this week. ... You'll see. Anyway, go to our website, aaapodcast.com. At the very top, there is a big old button that says mailbag. You can leave your submissions for us to read and talk about. And this week's comes to us from James T. They write, "This weekend, I just finished up Toradora. Wow, I have never cried because of a TV show or movie, but damn, I cried during Toradora. I wanted to hear your guys' thoughts. It's my only 10 out of 10 on Mel, other than Evangelion. I loved every little part of the show, and it will always hold a special place in my heart, especially Best Girl Taiga. Mandy and Enzo might remember me from Twitter, and after he uploaded a video of his iOS home screen where Taiga was heavily featured. Thank you guys for everything you do. Your podcast always manages to brighten my day." Well, thank you, James.
I haven't seen Toradora, so sorry, I'm going to have to kind of bow out. But Peter Payne, from our old friend from J-List, loves Toradora, so I know it is popular amongst many different sorts of people. So,
yeah,
go ahead, Mandy.
Oh, sorry. I thought I'll go because mine's faster.
Yeah.
But I also have not seen it. I feel really bad. Thank you so much for sharing, though, because I'm always very happy to hear about the shows other people are passionate about. So because you gave it such a high rating, I'll move it up my list. And I'll talk about it next What Have We Been Watching?
All right.
Because I feel bad. But I do remember your iOS from Twitter, though. So thank you for sharing. And I really appreciate it.
And this is the season to watch Toradora this end of year time, because it's kind of notorious for the Christmas episode that it has. So now is a very fitting time. It probably won't surprise you, though. I'm not the biggest fan of Toradora. I think my expectations were a little high going into it. The sound is great. The art is phenomenal. But some of the characters I really just didn't connect with. Like I've probably said a couple times. So I thought the ending was not quite my thing. But nonetheless, I'm glad you dug it. Glad you shared with it. I don't regret watching it. And I got not much more to say than that. So thank you for sharing.
All right. Well, that's our mailbag. With that, we're on to our review of Wave Listen to Me. So I believe this was passed by Mandy. So take it away, Mandy.
Yeah, so this one came out in spring 2020. I passed it on episode 520. Is that the episode that I passed it on?
Yeah, that's what it says on the document. Okay. Yeah.
But it is also available on Funimation. And I did a manga minute on this a long time ago, and I do not remember what episode that was. I don't know if I'll ever get to do this, but something in my dreams is that I would love to be able to go back and find all my manga minutes and put down episode numbers on them. But maybe. But yeah, this one is adapted by Studio Sunrise. The director was Minamikawa Tatsuma, who worked on Fire Force Season 2 and the second Fairy Tale movie. So Wave Listen to Me is a kind of comedy series about a woman, adult woman named Minare, who is working at a restaurant, and she has a lot of relationship issues. And she recently had a breakup, and at the beginning of the show, she is out ranting while drunk because she's a very, very outspoken woman.
Yeah.
And she is out at a bar ranting, and she meets up with a man. She starts ranting to a man, a stranger, just named, I think his name was Matao. But as he is listening to her, but she does not know is that he is a director at a local radio station in Hokkaido. And so he gets her into his radio booth and puts her rant about how much she is upset with this recent breakup live on air, and she does not remember any of that because she was just blackout drunk at the time. So the next day at work, she hears it on the radio. She hears herself on the radio, is very pissed off, and goes back there to give that man a piece of her mind. And instead, when she gets there, she finds out that he has a job opportunity for her, and asks her if she will has an interest in being on the radio. And so over the course of the show, it's about her just kind of getting into the radio world and like her own station, but also a vast majority of it is focused on just her as a character and her relationship issues, both inside of work and just relationship as in like romance. But yeah, so that's the big gist of it. Let's go into our expectations. Who would like to go first?
Basically, I didn't know much about this anime. I thought I recalled someone being like kind of like unsure about it or lukewarm about it. I think it was one of you guys, but maybe I just had a bad memory. But so I think my expectations were kind of low. But I am a radio sort of enthusiast, obviously. I mean, as Mandy and Mason will tell you, I always want this podcast to sound like radio. I always have aimed for that from the beginning, so there's kind of like that love of radio in me. So a show about, ostensibly, as I didn't really know, but I thought about radio, terrestrial radio, I thought, oh, okay, cool. Well, this anime could be right up my alley. So I think I had some hope for it, but based on other comments, was kind of like unsure, I think I would say.
Yeah, I had pretty high expectations going to this. As we mentioned in the trivia earlier, this is done by Hiroaki Samura, who did Blade of the Immortal, which I'm a big fan of, and I was curious to see how his skill set would transition to a seinen rom-com. I think I mentioned during the impressions, this is like a reverse of Makoto Yukimura, who went from the cerebral drama of Planet Test to the more epic historical action of Vinland Saga. And this guy's going from Blade of the Immortal to a show about radio. Additionally, it's a show entirely cast by adults, which is always welcome. I mean, how many times do we get shows about workplace discontent? Almost never. And finally, as Mitz mentioned, podcasts are kind of in that spirit of radio. And as someone who has a face for radio and not much else, I was hoping to pick up some tricks and learn a thing or two. So I had kind of high expectations going into this.
Because I did the manga for Manga Minute, I kind of know what to expect, and I didn't have amazing expectations going in. I thought I liked Minare as a character in the manga, and I knew that I was excited to see more of just her because she's very unique for anime in particular. But as far as like what was going on with around the radio station, I was not sure whether or not I was going to or whether or not they were going to accurately, like, not accurately, but at least be able to portray radio in a way that is engaging or I would say entertaining. But yeah, so I didn't have amazing expectations, and I also don't think I mean, who did this again? Sunrise. I don't know. For some reason, there wasn't a lot of hype around it. So, or at least a lot of news around it about people excited to see it because the manga is so, like, no one knew the manga existed. It was so weird when I first did the Manga Minute. I was like, it's by the mangaka of Blade and the Immortal. Did you guys know that? It's so weird. But yeah, so I had very low expectations going in. But yeah, I guess we'll see what happens in spoiler-free recommendations.
Oh, it's that time already.
Spoilers are coming.
No, spoiler free.
Oh my God.
Spoiler free.
Well, they will.
Played in reverse.
Spoiler free.
And let's hear that in instant replay. Okay, spoiler for recommendations. Sorry, jumped the gun there. So I do not think I would recommend this anime. For as much as I wanted it to be about radio, I just didn't feel like it was. I feel like the scenes in the show where they are actually doing broadcasting were the best scenes in the show, but ultimately that was not that big of a chunk of the show. I think a lot more of it was about Minare's life, I guess. And to be blunt, I kind of found this anime boring. This was a really tough one for me. I finished Castlevania, and so I had a moment in my day to watch anime every day, and that's like, as I'm going to bed. And it took me most of the week to get through like the second episode because I just kept nodding off. Like, it was just so uninteresting. The anime, the character designs didn't really hit with me. Like, they have the weirdest eyes I've ever seen. Like, they just don't. Like, why? Like, we'll talk about that, I'm sure, but the eyes are weird in this. And the pacing is just real slow. It's really slow. And, you could have unless you're a person that likes an anime where they can have a whole 10-minute conversation about, like, how to get an advertiser at 3 a.m. on the radio. I mean, it's probably not like why most of us are here for anime. It's like, that's kind of how I feel. Some people are going to watch this and they're going to feel the same way they did when they watched Good as Any. They're going to be like, well, I don't really give a shit about radio, and this is a little too, like, serious, like, not really what I came here for anime for. So I don't really know that I would recommend this. I don't really know who I could recommend it to, which is kind of sad, because I think I wanted more.
I'd agree with Mitz. I'd say probably wouldn't recommend it to most people. I would say if any show is a correlation for your enjoyment of this, I would say if you like The Great Passage, you might find something to like here. I enjoyed the show. I thought it was a pretty easy watch, and it is truly carried by the boisterous, imaginative, and passionate Minari, the main character. And your thoughts on her will kind of determine your thoughts on the entire show, I think. Has adults, but it's not too mature. They missed out on the opportunity to get the Moriocho voice radio from JoJo, which would have been perfect. But nonetheless, I enjoyed it, but I think most people will find not enough to like across all the different things it's going for?
I think overall I'm very much in the middle on this one. I think there are things that I love about it and there are things that I didn't like about it. I think in general, I really enjoy Minade, except for a few parts here and there. But I think overall, she's a character that we don't get to see a lot as far as adult women. She's very abrasive, and she speaks her mind. She'll tell you exactly how she's feeling. She's very combative, but yeah, I think a lot of the parts surrounding radio could be very confusing for people because the way that they portray it, they also showed alongside visuals that you like, so you can visualize what they're talking about. And I think that might lose a lot of people because I think the way that the radio station is set up in this is not similar to how we have it over here. And I have listened to some like not really radio stations, but they're like more like just they call them radio stations, but a lot of the like voice acting or shows with voice actors, I've listened to a lot of those and they're very similar to this. And I think a lot of that can maybe get lost in translation. But for example, the very first scene is her reading stories that fans sent in, but she has to do it as she is trying to portray with her voice that she is fighting a bear at the same time. So yeah. I think that stuff like that could very, very easily get lost on people. But yeah, I think I really enjoy Minare, but there are a lot of homophobic jokes in this that I didn't appreciate. So, but they didn't ruin the entire show for me, but it is good to just throw that out there if that's something that might bother you, that they're in here. So, but yeah, I think overall it's a fine watch. Like Mason said, it's very easy to watch, and I did like parts of it a lot, but it's not going to be for everybody. I guess with that, we can go into spoilers.
Hit it.
Spoilers are coming. Oh my god.
Well, I don't know. I'm not really sure in what way we define like something being easy to watch because, I mean, I guess there's, it's easy to watch and that like whatever you're seeing is what it is at face value. Like you don't have to like to peel an onion layer to get to like the real meaning. You know, it's not Yurikuma Arashi. But at the same time, I was bored as hell for like almost all of this, and this was one of those anime where I'm like checking how much time's left in the episode every 5 minutes because I'm like I'm here for the podcast, but there's like no chance in hell I would watch this otherwise because the pacing is so viciously slow that for me it was not an easy watch because I was so bored. And you know it happens, but like I said, I mean, I don't know.
I guess I would define an easy watch in the fact that I was always interested in how Minari would act in any situation. And because the show was 95% her talking with people or things and kind of in her own head, I was always interested to see how that situation would play off. And I think like her character, as Manny said, is so unique in the realm of anime, and she has so many characteristics, and she's boisterous, she's wild, she's snappy, she's creative, she's mature, she's juvenile. She is, as the show puts it, the crystallized form of inexplicable life energy. And that is all packed into one container with a absolute dynamite voice acting performance that like she is the nucleus sun that this show revolves around. And I love all the outfits she wears. I love how she has an apron that says "There was no God" when she's working at the Gargarin food stall. Like, there's just so much packed into her that things got kind of boring if they're just talking about, oh, we're doing radio shows, we need to find an advertiser. Or if they're going off the rails where she's going to exorcise a demon at some dude's house and the blood of his girlfriend's remains is dripping through the floor. And you're just like, how is this all in the same show? And
that was one of my favorite episodes. I love that episode.
There is some like unbelievable things that happen with like her voice comes on the radio and is heard by the person who's about to attack the person that she's ranting about attacking. Like you're like, okay, this is a little absurd, but overall I guess there was enough compelling moments to lead from one episode to the next that I thought it was easy in that regard.
Yeah, I think your enjoyment is definitely going to depend on whether or not you like Minare, because like Mason said, this woman is a mess, but she like despite like taking out a lot of the moments where it gets a little bit ridiculous. For example, she throws a man with her thighs.
For example, a turtle poops in her mouth.
Yeah, taking out all of those like weird, like just comedic moments. I felt like she was just so real because she doesn't fall into any easy tropes in terms of like women in anime or media in general. She has so many different layers to her. Like Mason said, she's mature, but she's also extremely immature. She is very abrasive, but she's also very insecure. And she is, I think it's great knowing that seeing her get into radio, because I think her personality is perfect for radio. She is exactly what they needed. The way she can rant, and this is great with the voice actors or the actresses just talent in general, is that she's able to just rant on without tripping up a word. And it's just, I love watching her. There are some moments in this where that I did not like, which was the mostly focused on her boss. At first they had a joke where the boss is likes touching the other male butts in the series, and I was like, okay, I guess we could get just say he's just a creepy guy. But then Minare does have a lot of jokes where it's like, oh, she always blames things on him because he's gay, and I'm like, ugh, those jokes I could have done without. But everything else I'm like surrounding Minare, except for that, I absolutely loved.
Yeah, to be kind of devil's advocate, at one point she's like, oh, this guy, he doesn't like me because he just wants to work with men, he's touching their butts, and that's his problem. And she's not wrong, but at the same time she then blames everything on the fact that he's gay, and not, oh, you're showing up late, you're sassing the customers. Like, she defaults to that and doesn't go any further. So at first she kind of had a point, but then she was so short-sighted in it that I was like, yeah, that's not a good look. And the kind of pseudo comedy relationship she has with her roommate later on, where she's like, oh, I guess I'll just go for her now, is definitely more comedy focused, but it didn't play that well. But
I agree. It's just it was something I was able to look past, though, but it is worth just throwing it out there if that's something that would
absolutely
easily turn you off of the show if that's not something that you can get around. But yeah, no, I think some of the moments that I absolutely loved is just the kind of weird, crazy experimental things that they were doing at this radio station, like the exorcism thing. And I'm so surprised they can legally get away with this shit. There are so many times I'm like, wait on a second.
There's no rules in radio.
You're throwing this man's voice on radio and you don't have his permission? Is that legal in Japan?
I guess the one lady did ask, can I film you?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's messed up.
But that was looking trying to look past it, whether or not it's realistic. I still thought it was really entertaining though, when they're trying to figure out if his house or his apartment was haunted, and the conclusion of it, which was very obvious. We knew what it was going to be, but I did love that it ended up being her fault the entire time. It's always her fault. But I also liked the episode where they're playing around with sound effects. I thought that was really cool. They called in the experts with the sound effects.
And
that was towards the
in
end.
The studio, making it. Yeah.
I thought that was super cool. I like the radio dramas that they put on. I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I mean they do this kind of stuff in Japan, having to drive constantly in Japan, and all you have is a crappy K car with a little radio in it. They do this stuff. A lot of variety. They do a lot of variety TV in Japan. Well, they do a lot of variety radio too. So. It's a lot of celebrities, gags, skits, stuff like that. So it's pretty accurate.
Yeah, and I liked a lot of the comments they made about the podcasting thing. If you don't have sponsors, you have more freedom and can be more inventive. And they talk about how the listeners, and I think we can agree that we found this true as podcasting. You guys are incredibly forgiving every time we fumble our words and botch or skew them and say adapted instead of adapted. You guys are
adaptated.
Yeah. And the one line that I've talked with Manny about earlier is they have a line where it says TV viewers are customers, but radio listeners are participants. And we absolutely believe that with all the mailbags you guys submit in the Discord community, like all of that, like helps feed the show more than any other types of media. So like, I think it did the radio parts well. And I think maybe Mitz was upset, or not upset, but just was like, oh, I wanted more of that. I wanted more radio moments and not the life of this person trying to get it together.
I mean, I thought it was going to be like the rise of her career. And I mean, at the end of the show, she's still like a nothing, basically. She's been on the radio like 3 times. So, you know, I guess the implication is that she's going to be a success. And maybe there's like, maybe the manga might go on forever. Like, I don't know. But
well, she was getting more well known. She's like, they had a lot of responses on her Twitter account, and that's where they got a lot of her mailbags
and the fax machine.
Oh, and also the very end where they're all like, there's that big blackout and everybody was listening to her specifically on the radio, and she is, you know, guiding them through this earthquake. And it was a really cool moment where she is the only thing that they all had, and they kind of connected everybody.
I mean,
she's really cool.
She's becoming more popular, but she's still on at 3 a.m., you know, with like no sponsor. So
I really like that. I thought the ending of this series was phenomenal, because this isn't some hero series. The protagonist is not the sun, like empowering all. Like the visuals and the song at the end remind us as they look up on this like night sky that we're all just one of like numerous small nameless stars just going about our existence. And we're shining like only to help populate the night sky the best we can. And she's just one of them. And she's not like a monumental success yet, but she's out there trying her best with everyone else. And we get like all the characters looking up at it. I thought that was a really nice touch. And yeah, she's not a superstar, but she can't expect that. It's been a couple of weeks and she's building her way up. So
I guess
we're fine with that.
I guess I think it needed to be longer, maybe. Like, you know, that's a weird thing to say considering I already criticized the pacing, but it's like, but you know, all these shows start off with a character that's like nothing, right? Like most of the time a character is like an amateur, or they're not good at a sport, or they're not good at cooking or whatever. But the show, throughout the course of it, they usually, you know, progress to a point where they've reached success and they've overcome hardships and whatnot. And I feel like this is that kind of show as well. Like I have to assume that Minare will end up a success at the end of the day, but there just wasn't quite enough meat in the show or enough length to get us to that point. So I'd kind of like, I guess I wanted to see her develop more. Like it would have been nice to see the victory moment when she moves from like 3 a.m. to like 5:30, you know, where when like people are actually in their cars driving to school or whatever, or driving to work or whatnot.
But I feel like her success was the part where she's finally over her relationship issues, which has been a big focus of the whole series. And I love that radio broadcast where they kind of like had her be reborn, die and be reborn into a different person. And her boss is like, this is where we are going to be. And we're going to take your radio station to a new level. And she got her own segment with her own name, like with her name attached to it. And I thought that was cool. But I also think it felt more realistic that way, because people don't achieve success in real life that quickly. So I don't know. I felt like it was the vast majority of her success was just being able to find a new passion. Because for a while there, she was waffling and didn't really seem all that interested in the radio show, and was only doing it for money, because she was definitely getting her fired from her job. But
yeah.
So I think the success that she achieved at the end was just growing as a person, maybe getting over that relationship issue, and finding like the thing that she is good at and wants to do in her life. I don't know.
Yeah, it's slice of lifey in that way, you know.
One of the moments that I absolutely loved, though, is during the earthquake, where she started panicking and just started like reading something on like repeat, and her boss came in, tapped down on the note, and it said, "Stop acting like an amateur." I love that moment, because she's like, shit, yeah, a professional on the radio should be able to adapt to anything, and I need to be here to not to make people panic, but to give them entertainment during a really awful time. So
Yeah,
I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, he's kind of coaching her, kind of nurturing her success, I guess. I mean, he stands to benefit from her being a success. I mean, it would be great for him to have, a new rock star radio personality driving ratings and whatnot. So, but it's also nice just to see like, that's him being a professional. He is the coach, so to speak, in that scenario, and it's. Interesting.
Creepy, but overall a nice guy.
I mean, yeah, but in this moment, it's interesting to see the behind the curtain dynamic of how things would work on radio. Like, oh my God, there's an earthquake. What would happen in an earthquake when like the radio host is frazzled? Oh, well, we're communicating with notes and things like that. Silently trying to coordinate this ad lib sort of effort, because I'm sure even if they had a huge show planned for that hour, when there's a giant earthquake and the power is going out all over the city, whatever you have planned is thrown out the window. So, but it's it's kind of cool to see the behind the scenes. I wanted more of that. Like, I think that if I could have, I guess what I wanted from the show was maybe like 15 to 20% more of the like Shirobako behind the scenes inner workings of the radio station, and but I get that it's about Minare as well, so maybe in some ways I wish it was longer so we could have had more of that, so we could have had both, but sometimes you just can't have everything.
Yeah, I just love workplace shows, and I agree that I wanted more of that, but I was very content with what we got from Minare's life, so I was pretty satisfied. Jumping a little bit, I thought the art and animation was done very smartly. I think one of the funniest scenes probably of all year is in episode 2 where she gets very upset at her manager and she gets furious, and you see like a slider in the bottom right of the screen of her height, width, and thickness as they max out her height, and she like grows like in a very pixelated like lesser dog style from Undertale, like as she gets like this massive like structure, and then she gets like called what's what, like you're about to be fired, and she like shrinks back down instantly. Like that was a super cheap way of expressing her anger, but it was done so well. And yes, everyone mentions the eyes of the show, which essentially look like gray shadowed circles.
Yeah, it's weird.
Like a second iris, which I don't believe is in the manga from what I've read.
I don't think so. I can't remember.
It's almost like the eyeball itself is casting a shadow, which is odd, but I honestly did not find it as distracting as like the noses in God of High School. And I do like the more realistic eye sizes in the show. They were more similar to like Ghost in the Shell.
It is interesting to see the little the unique characteristics that some character designs have.
Yeah.
We got our Santa Claus noses over here. We got, like your cornea was detached and like floated down your eyeball from Listen to Me.
Yeah, it was a bit odd, but it didn't take me out of anything. The music, I really like the OP done by Tasuka, which is the same group who did the Haikyuu EDs and the Space Brother OP. And I really like the touch because they are from Hokkaido, where the series takes place. And if you've ever heard a song by this band, Igarashi's vocals have a very certain tonality to them that makes them instantly recognizable. So that was a treat to hear.
Yeah, it was nice. I like the opening. So
I was trying to check the manga because I still have it on my phone, but apparently there's an update, so I can't. But I don't remember the eyeballs looking.
I didn't
that
think
way.
so.
So that's about it. That's about it. I mean, you're talking about the aesthetics. The art wasn't really anything all that. Like the animation wasn't anything like to write home about. But then again, the show's not really that sort of a show where it's required. We've had that conversation before. So overall, I thought it was fine. Like, it wasn't what I wanted, but at the same time, we already know I don't really like slice of life anime. So for the moments of this show that were slice of life, I was, half asleep. Typical.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of art, outside of the eyeballs, which I agree just looks super off-putting, but everything else was fine. Like Mitch said, it wasn't amazing, but I also thought the character designs were unique enough that I could recognize everybody. And
right.
Like, I thought it looked fine. Not amazing, but pretty decent.
Everything came through the voice acting, which was stunning where it needed to be. So I think it hit all the marks it needed to. It didn't excel and become some juggernaut force, but it did what it needed to do to make me enjoy it. So that's kind of my thoughts. I don't have much else.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's about it for Wave Listen to Me. I think this is one of the last shows we had from that one season. So we're getting caught up now. We're going to be probably talking about more anime from, the fall, I guess? Or maybe the summer? I don't know. What the hell season are we in?
So this Wave Listen to Me was from spring.
Winter? Oh.
It was from spring. So now we're going to move on to summer.
To the summer shows, right. And we'll start with the shows that are the most, the bigger titles from summer. So
hot ticket items.
Yeah, the hot ticket items. So that's about it, guys. So we have reached the end of the podcast. I want to thank everybody that stuck with us here on Twitch. We're going to be doing an after party here in about 5 or 10 minutes or so. And as always, the social media, you can find us on Twitter. We're all over Twitter. We all have a handle. The podcast itself is at AAA Podcast. I recommend you follow the podcast. Caroline does a lot of fun stuff on there. She plays her little silhouette games where you try to guess a character with just the black outline of their shape, which is always kind of fun. And you can stay up to date with the podcast and news and whatnot through the Twitter page. I am at Pope Mitsugi. I haven't really been on Twitter all that much lately, but here and there I can be found. Mandy and Mason, what do you have going on Twitter, and where can people find you?
I'm at Mandy X Mandy on Twitter. Mandy spelled with an I, by the way. Or if you want to be my mom, it's Mandix Mandy.
Mandix.
It's still so funny to me, but because I never even thought of that, and now I'm like, oh man, maybe I should change my name.
Dick spelled with an X.
Yeah, but Mandy X Mandy on Twitter, and also my manga club will be this Wednesday, November 25th. Is it this Wednesday? Yes, it is this Wednesday. So sorry. And we are discussing the first 2 volumes of Way of the House Husband, which will be so exciting because I love it, and I'm excited to just have a good comedic time with everybody.
It'll be something. You can follow me on Twitter at Macy Pacey. That's MACEYPACEY. I usually just post screenshots from shows I'm watching and make dumb jokes about them, so it's a pretty fun time. Anime Club will be discussing the MITS Classic, Dress of the Stars, December 2nd at 10 p.m. EST. You can watch that show over on Funimation. Watch it all and jump in the voice chat, and you just hang out as we talk about the show, and it's a fun old time.
Oh yeah, some of the best space battles. I love it. So, all right, that's about it, guys. Without further ado, we're gonna wrap up the podcast here, I think. And do appreciate all of you watching. We'll see you next week. If I don't talk to you, happy Thanksgiving. And if you're in the States, I guess. And we'll see you on episode 552. Peace.
Bye, guys.